Obeka Splitter of Seconds is a red, a black, a blue, and one other for a 2/5 Ogre Warlock with Menace. Says whenever Obeka Splitter of Seconds deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeep steps after this phase. I think it's really cool when a brand new commander is printed and it's specific and niche and plays with some rule or interaction that hasn't really been super thoroughly explored before, or gives that rule or interaction new life. And that's exactly what Obeka has done. We've got some cards that their prices are on the move. And if you're not using them and you've got them in your collection, you may want to look at offloading them right now while the hype is high. And we've got some cards that I think would be good in an Obeka deck that are still a little under the radar, and you might want to take a look at them before they potentially explode in price as well.
Highest level of gratitude to our patrons who power the channel through Patreon. Check out the Patreon link in the description to learn about monthly giveaways, VIP Discord access, and even our official playmat.
Big shout out to our sponsors that allow Jake and I to work on the channel full time. They support us, so please go support them. Card Conduit, the best place to sell your cards. TCG Player, the best place to buy them. Drip Shop, the best place to buy some stuff from us and maybe win a giveaway. Dragon Shield, the best sleeves in the entire multiverse. MTG Stocks, which you'll see in the video today to track the prices of cards over time, and of course Moxfield, where we put all our deck lists. Also want to thank our patrons who support the channel directly. Every single tier we have tried to fill with some excellent perks for whatever level you want to support us at, and all of our $10 patrons or higher enjoy an exclusive video every week that's only posted on the Patreon. Go check it out, see if it's a good fit for you. Let's take a look at Obeka. Obviously, at first glance, the deck is going to want ways to protect Obeka, other ways to get Obeka through, maybe grow Obeka's power, but specifically today, we're mostly looking at cards that say at the beginning of your upkeep. There are some cards in red, black, blue, commander color identity that are moving directly as a result of this commander being cool, unique, and pretty hyped as this set comes out. Before we jump into this video, I want to be very clear. I don't own a position in any of these cards. I'm not sitting on stacks of any of these cards individually to go and resell after you see this video. If they keep going up, it's a result of them being good in a deck that people are hyped on. Court of Embereth. This is not the only court we're going to look at in this video. It's just the first one. Embereth was just printed in the commander set from Wilds of Eldraine. You can see it's moving. This card was under $2 most of last year. It's getting up into the $8 range at this point. 2 red, 2 other. As it enters, you become the Monarch, and at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 3/1 red knight creature token. Then if you are the Monarch, it deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of creatures you control. So you can see if we get even 2 additional upkeeps, we're creating 2 tokens, we're dealing damage equal to however many creatures we control twice. And so you can see some of the power level that this commander can allow you to obtain, and the power level that these enchantments, these courts, suddenly have. If you're doubling, tripling, quadrupling, getting crazy with the amount of upkeeps that you give yourself in your turn. Court of Advantous is one that I really like a lot. ETBs, you become the Monarch, and at the beginning of your upkeep, choose up to 1 other target enchantment or artifact. If you're the Monarch, you may create a token that's a copy of it. If you're not the Monarch, you may have Court of Advantous become a copy of it, except it has this ability. Creating token copies of enchantments or artifacts, it doesn't even have to be one you control. Having that as many times as we can make upkeeps, even just 2, still really strong. And so you can see what players are looking for with this deck. It's pretty straightforward, but with these cards that happen at the beginning of your upkeep, if you're the Monarch, if suddenly when you can give yourself multiple upkeep steps right in the middle of your turn, these cards are exploding in price, and it's pretty evident to see why. That's not the only place we've got courts though. Commander Legends also brought us some pretty sweet courts, and you can see the uptrend on this card as well. Court of Ambition, 2 black, 2 other, ETBs, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 3 life unless they discard a card, and if you're the Monarch, instead, each opponent loses 6 life unless they discard 2 cards. There's only so many times, if you're getting a ton of extra upkeeps, that they're going to be able to choose to discard cards to avoid the life loss. If you can pump Obeka's power really high, this is the kind of card that could just be like, oops, I win. On my turn, y'all all take 6 because your hand is empty, and that is going to repeat 12 times because her power was 12 when she got through. You can see how this can just get ridiculous. It's a pretty hype commander. It's a pretty cool one. It's all based on combat damage. So again, use cards like Rogue's Passage, use any copy of any boots you want to protect her, but make sure that she's protected and she's getting through, and you're going to have a fantastic time. Speaking of automatic wins, look at Court of Cunning. ETBs, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, any number of target players each mill 2 cards, and if you're the Monarch, each of those players mills 10 cards instead. Less than 10 power, 10 power, 9 power, something around there, connecting, getting that many upkeeps, Court of Cunning's on the battlefield. Each of those players mills 10 cards instead, repeated however many extra upkeeps you have. You're looking at a really nice uptrend on the Court of Cunning as well. These are the ones I like to lean into these more because, and you can see that's reflected in the price. Players obviously are feeling the same way. These are the kind of ones that if we can pull off one big attack that gets through and connects, boom, we win. Darksteel Reactor, 4 mana, it's indestructible. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on Darksteel Reactor. When Darksteel Reactor has 20 or more charge counters on it, you win the game, and that's immediate. When it has 20 or more charge counters on it, boom, you're done. We can burn them down with the courts. We can mill them out with the courts. We can just get 20 counters on Darksteel Reactor and win that way. This one has got a big jump right now, and if you're sitting on this one and you don't really need it, maybe it's a good time to go send this one off to turn into cash and bring you back some cards that you do want to play. So I'm talking about the power pump, right? That's what we really need to do. I don't have a ton of cards in the video that do that. Mostly we're looking at the very first cards that everybody's exploring for this commander, which is the at the beginning of your upkeep cards that are really good and could potentially win you the game. But there's a reserve list card called Hatred, and for 5 mana at instant speed, you can pay X life to give target creature +X/+O until end of turn. Y'all, this is how you could win. You've got plenty of life. What did we need? 10 to trigger one of the courts enough to win? We need 20 to get the Darksteel auto win. You got 40 life to work with, so Hatred should get you there if you got 5 mana. Swing with Obeka. Okay, no blocks. Cool. Damage about to go through. Cool. Before damage, I'm going to cast Hatred. I'm going to pay 20 life, make her a 22 power, and I'm going to get 22 upkeeps after this, and we're going to start resolving some mill triggers from my blue court. This is the kind of card that I could really see short term getting a little jostle in the jimmies and making a little stab, especially because it's reserve list and people tend to go nutso when we start looking at reserve list cards that are playable and auto wins and, you know, 1, 2, 3 card combos with a brand new commander. If you got any copies of Hatred you're sitting on, like I said, it's a reserve list card. It's already around $35. You can see the spike between 21 and 22, what this card could potentially do. And so I really feel like as people get turned on more to Obeka and we see where it's going to fall out, people might want this card a lot. You know, we could end up saying, oh, this commander is just kind of mid. It's a normal commander. We don't need all of these super powerful cards. Not everybody's going to be building this one. It's not going to be a, you know, perennial top 50, top 25 commander. But if it proves the test of time, some of these cards could really move. Gate to the Aether is one. You can see it's been on a steady incline for a long time just because of a bunch of different kinds of decks wanting it. But recently, a nice little jump there, especially for the foils up to that $10 mark. 6 mana at the beginning of each player's upkeep. That player reveals the top card of their library. If it's an artifact, creature, enchantment, or land, that player may put it into play. I mean, come on, if we got 10 extra even if we got 2 extra upkeeps because we didn't grow Obeka's power whatsoever, we're going to get potentially 2 free permanents right onto the battlefield with Gate to the Aether. This is just the exact kind of card that this deck wants, and it's silly, and it's under $5. I love a card like this. When a cool niche commander comes out, it's pretty sweet. I've been recommending Descent into Averess for a little while now, and I've never had anybody come back to me and go, I hate that you recommended Descent into Averess. That card sucks, and I don't want to play it anymore. A red and 2 for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 descent counters on it. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of descent counters on it. Okay, let's start burning everybody down a little more aggressively. We're gonna just keep dumping descent counters onto Avernus, 2 for every upkeep that we allow ourselves. Yeah, it's going to give them some treasure, but it's also going to give us some treasure and more mana to use. Plus, if we can just keep our life total above our opponent's life totals, Descent into Avernus is going to win us the game, and it's that simple. Nice little spike here recently. You can see people have kind of flirted with it. It stayed around the $2 mark, but this is one that I could see having a little bit of a pump in the short term. And so either wait to pick this up, or maybe go see if you want to go grab, you know, your copies of Descent into Avernus and turn them into something else. I found this card as I was exploring Extravagant Replication. We're getting now into the realm of cards that haven't quite exploded yet, but I think are fun and good in the deck, and you might want to go look at and see if you want to play them in there. Extravagant Replication, 2 blue, 4 other enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of another target non-land permanent you control. I mean, just making tokens of any of your non-land permanents, copies for each upkeep, very strong. Little expensive here for the enchantment at 6 mana. It's not going to come down until about 2 turns after Obeka, depending on your ramp and your mana rock situation, treasure tokens. But I still think that this one's got a lot of viability. Slamming it down, even if it's just 2 extra upkeeps, 2 token copies of any other non-land permanents you control, that can get out of hand really quickly if nobody's got an answer for it. And it's an enchantment, so it's nice and sticky. You can see a little bit, just the slightest uptick here in the recent days with Extravagant Replication. So we'll see what this one does over time. Let's move away from the ones that have already started moving and take a peek at some cards that I think have some viability in this deck, and we'll kind of see long term. Creeping Bloodsucker is a very interesting one here. 1 black, 1 other for a 1/2 vamp. At the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain life equal to the damage this way. You can see how you can win with this when this is a fantastic card in the deck. And you can see that it is a common from Jumpstart 22. That is the only place this card has been printed. Vampires wants it. Aristocrats probably wants it a little bit. Life gain, life drain decks want it. And now Obeka upkeep decks want it. This is one you can see spiked up to 6, and it's coming down a little bit, but you might want to go see, or just sit and wait on Creeping Bloodsucker. Proxy this one up until it gets reprinted, because y'all, this one is going to get absolutely annihilated in price when it gets reprinted. It's just a very scarce common right now that happens to be strong in a couple of different decks. Plargan Nassarius from March of the Machine, The Aftermath, another single set card here. 2 red, 3 other for a 5/4 Orc Efreet. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. An opponent chooses a non-land card exiled this way. You may cast up to 2 spells from among the other cards exiled this way without paying their mana costs. During our last Commander play day that we have with our Patreon once a month, go join the Patreon if you want to check that out and play Commander with us all day once a month, I had somebody play Plarg and Nassari against me, and I gotta tell you, this card is brutal. If you can resolve this and get back to your upkeep, holy moly, you're just getting so much free value. Now, let's add in that you might get 2, 3, 10 extra upkeeps in the middle of your turn. Suddenly, you are getting 2 free spells from your opponent's libraries. Don't try and play this one over spell table, because that would be miserable, but Plargan Nassari seems like the kind of card that you would really want in Obeka. And March of the Machine, The Aftermath, that was a very strange set that some card prices are starting to move from, because not a ton of people really loved that one, and if nobody buys it, there's no cards to sell. So not trying to get anybody FOMOing out on this one. You can see it's only $1, and again, I'm not sitting on a ton of copies of these. I just think that after having played this card, after having seen this card played against me, I should say, that this one belongs in the Obeka deck. It's cool that this one can come down the turn after Obeka, and you can just get to swinging, get your extra upkeeps, and get free spells, and the value train are rolling. I think that this one would be a really strong addition to the deck. I like Headliner Scarlet as well. This one was just printed in Ravnica Clue edition, and so, you know, supply is kind of weird on this one, But for 1 red, 3 other, you get a 3/3 hasty human warlock. It says whenever Headliner enters the battlefield, creatures target player controls can't block this turn. And then at the beginning of your upkeep, exile the top card of your library face down. You may look at and play that card this turn. There are a lot of cards that say something to the effect of, at the beginning of your upkeep, put some cards off of your library into exile. You can play those this turn. There's a lot of different variations of that ability. I just called this one out specifically because it's still cheap. It's around $1, and it just came out, and it was in a very specific place. You had to get that Clue Edition set to get this card. Every Clue Edition got this card, so I'm not saying that this is some amazing spec. That's not what this video is about. But I do like this type of effect, and this one happens to be a single printing version of a card that does this, and so I thought it was worth mentioning. But look for cards that are going to give you extra value, and especially look for cards that say you can play that card this turn instead of cast that card this turn, because that lets you use your lands off the top of your library instead of just your spells, and so you can get some extra value that way. I do like Scarlet and all kinds of cards like that in this deck. Shadowkin is a very interesting one as well. This was from the Commander Innistrad Midnight Hunt decks. 1 blue, 3 other, 2/2 with flash. At the beginning of your upkeep, each player mills 3 cards. So if we can just get a ton of triggers of this, if we can get a ton of power on Obeka and she swings through, connects, and we get a ton of upkeeps, we could potentially mill our opponents out, but then you can exile a creature card from among the cards milled this way, and if you do, Shadowkin becomes a copy of that card, except it has this ability. You could potentially hit their strongest creature in their entire deck, some 8 mana ding-dong of a dork that's about to come at you and crush your face. Shadowkin has some play in this. I would have to play test this one, but I do like that we could potentially lean on the each player mills, or we could steal their best creature and have Shadowkin become a version of that. This one around $1. You can see not many people are playing it, but all of these cards that say at the beginning of your upkeep are worth a look, in my opinion. Let's take it back to Urza's Legacy, to a card that you've probably seen before and have never really had a home for because it's only okay. But when we're getting a ton of upkeeps, 2 black, 3 other for Subversion. During your upkeep, each of your opponents loses a life. Gain a life for each 1 life lost this way. That's how we win the game right there. Burn them all down. Just get crazy with the upkeeps, and we're having opponents lose a life at each upkeep. Again, there are a lot of effects like this spread throughout Magic's history. Go to Scryfall. I'll put the search in the pinned comment here. Go to Scryfall, look at the beginning of your upkeep or during your upkeep or on your upkeep, whatever, any of those versions, see which cards speak to you. See if there's any past that I've missed that I haven't included in this video. I do want to talk about Palace Siege. This is another one, just $1. Another 5 mana enchantment, big chonky enchantment, but it can come down the turn after Obeka comes down and Obeka's ready to swing and you're getting extra upkeeps, and you choose that Dragons one down there at the bottom. At the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Just another way of burning your opponent's life totals down and taking advantage of your commander's ability. A bunch of these are already moving. We're already late to the game on this. I'm trying to go as quickly as I can, but MTG moves at a sprinting pace, and so we got to catch it when we can. These could be cool cards in the Obeka deck, and so if you want that deck and you're like, I gotta have it now and I gotta have the real cards, go try and find these before they get too high. But if you're sitting on any of these, especially the ones from the beginning of the video, might be a good time to go flip them off. Can I end this video with, you might need to go flip them off?